investigation into the Russian collusion question in the 2016 election. We were the first to break the news last week that Bruce Orr, a man working at the highest level of the probe at the Department of Justice, was demoted shortly after Fox News asked about his ties to the anti-Trump dossier, ties that include a meeting with Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson, whose organization commissioned the dossier, also a meeting with Christopher Steele. And tonight, those ties appear to extend even deeper. We're learning that Orr's wife worked for Fusion GPS during the campaign. So what to make of all this? Here now, Buck Sexton, former CIA officer, David Tafori, former State Department official and Obama campaign foreign policy advisor. Welcome to both of you. David, let me start with you. You know, it's like a family tree, you know, and you keep extending it out. And Glenn Simpson's wife also had connections. There's all of these ties to the Clinton campaign. You have Andrew Weissman, who was at went to the party that was supposed to be her victory party that night. So how can these people be impartial when it comes to investigating either Hillary Clinton before the election or President Trump and his team during the campaign?
Well, it's important that Fox News did the investigative work to break this story, and congrats to you and to James Rosen. And this is an important story, and we need to get to the bottom of it. The latest information is particularly concerning because it suggests that Orr's wife was working for Fusion GPS. That would suggest he had a conflict of interest under the DOJ guidelines. It could be both a financial conflict and a personal conflict because she was apparently being paid by Fusion GPS, and she also had an interest in supporting Fusion GPS. And so that's of concern. But we don't know exactly what Orr's role was in the investigation. And it's also important to note now that the special counsel's office is operating separately from the Department of Justice, independently from the Department of Justice. So Orr and whatever he was doing would not have influence over Mueller and the special counsel investigation.
But what is clear, Buck, is that, you know, there wasn't really a very big effort to choose people to do this investigation who would be completely above reproach, that there would be conflict of interest. Sometimes that's all it is. It doesn't mean that you have any strong feelings or that you would act differently, but just that there's an appearance of impropriety that smacks of something that should not be part of the investigation. And it appears they made no effort to do any of that.
Martha, yeah, I think it's much worse. I think that what we see are a whole bunch of pro-Clinton, anti-Trump partisans that have at key nodes, at key points in the investigation, whether it's of Hillary's emails or then of the interview with General Flynn and then with the Mueller special counsel probe, have been involved in ways that I think do raise a lot of questions. And once we start talking about the dossier specifically, there is still the possibility that much of what we're discussing when it comes to the Russia collusion probe could have been started by the dossier, which was opposition research paid for by Hillary and the DNC. And if in fact that was the basis for essentially weaponizing part of the intelligence community to engage in a counterintelligence investigation against a U.S. political campaign, that is a bombshell. And I think that's why you've seen some hesitancy on the part of the DOJ to come clean with some of this information. I mean, we should have known a long time ago if anyone tied to the dossier was also involved at the DOJ with the Mueller probe. This should not be news. And again, Fox News doing excellent work to unearth it.
I mean, David, that's the problem. I mean, and it looks terrible, right? It looks like all of these people were so concerned about a Trump presidency that they felt like they were doing something righteous to try to throw whatever roadblock they could in front of it, even if it meant paying for a dossier that turned out to be largely unsubstantiated, and using that as a way to investigate members of the campaign.
Well, let me correct something that Buck said. Buck said this started with the dossier. This did not start with the dossier. This started with the communications between the Trump campaign and Russia. Those communications happened, and we have evidence, irrefutable evidence of those communications.
Well, what's the irrefutable evidence? I'd like to know. And how would you know what that evidence is?
Well,
let me tell you, there are emails between Donald Trump Jr. and Wikipedia, which was serving as an agent of Russia.
Wikipedia puts online lots of information.
There were conversations between the Russian ambassador and the Trump campaign. There were meetings, including Kushner and Donald Trump Jr. Don't interrupt me, Buck. Let me finish. There were meetings that happened. All of this, there's irrefutable evidence of now. So it doesn't matter what the dossier says, because many of the things that are in the dossier are now becoming
You're mentioning Wikipedia and then WikiLeaks, and the WikiLeaks story that would have been evidence of some kind of collusion was just entirely debunked, much to the mainstream media's chagrin.
If it were
straightforward, as you just said it was,
that's not the Wikipedia story I'm talking about. I'm talking about the emails between Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah,
and
we
Wikipedia,
don't know that they actually mean anything,
verified.
but we got to leave it there, you guys. But I will have you back, I promise. Thanks, you guys. Coming up, she accused